Hello and welcome back to Football Daily, where today we're following up on our video from a few weeks ago, 10 football clubs that are secretly rich, with the opposite. Prepare for 10 minutes or so of pure financial woe. 10. AC Milan. Having seen AC Milan banned from European football for one season over breaches of financial fair play, it's perhaps no surprise to learn that the Rossoneri aren't in the best position financially. For a long time, one of the biggest clubs in European football, with 7 European Cups, 18 Scudettos and players including Van Basten, Maldini and Kaká, those days are long gone. Their best players such as Pirlo and Thiago Silva were sold at cut costs, and their president of 31 years, Silvio Berlusconi, was told by his family to stop wasting his money on his pet project. He sold up to Chinese investors Yonghong Li in 2017, who used borrowed money he then couldn't pay back. In stepped Elliott Management, who offered a loan and essentially repossessed Milan. Without a title in 10 years in 2021, onto their 9th manager in that time, out of the Champions League for 6 years, and with a crumbling 80,000-seater stadium, the Rossoneri desperately need a new home to ease their debts, which totaled €272 million in January 2019. With so much to do off the pitch and a €650 million stadium to build off it, it could be another decade until Milan get anywhere near the top of European football. 9. Monaco. This isn't the first time AS Monaco has come into financial difficulty. In May 2003, they were initially relegated into the second tier after failing to manage debts of over £62 million. Ultimately, they had their ban overturned and reached the Champions League final just a year later, where their team of Evra, Morientes, Juli and a young Adebayor lost to Mourinho's Porto. But financial crisis has never been far from their door. Despite selling players including James Rodriguez, Martial, Mbappe, Bernardo Silva and Benjamin Mendy over the last 6 years, and making a ridiculous £815 million on their player sales since 2014, they continue to struggle for their financial equilibrium. That's because the Principality of Monaco is home to just under 39,000 people, and despite being an attractive pet project for oligarchs in a place consumed by wealth, the club will always struggle as long as it averages just over 8,000 fans every home game, the lowest in Ligue 1 for 18-19. Their academy and talent identification is keeping it afloat for now, but its debts of €147 million as of January 2019 just shows how fragile their continued existence is. 8. Benfica. Similarly to Monaco, Benfica have garnered a reputation in recent years as an excellent producer of talent. Players including Oblak, Matic, David Luiz, Edison and Lindelof have all passed through the Estadio da Luz in the last decade. They have made a net profit of £495 million on transfer since the start of the 14-15 season, and in fairness it has yielded no little domestic success. 5 of the last 6 league titles and 3 domestic cups, not to mention 2 runs in the Champions League knockouts, the Benfica fans have had plenty to cheer about despite the exodus of their heroes. But some of them might be questioning why did Oblak, Edison and Lindelof only ever make 154 appearances for the club between them before being sold before their 24th birthdays? Why couldn't they be allowed to develop and allow Benfica to finally challenge in Europe once again, having gone just shy of 58 years without a continental trophy? In short, it's their debt, which as of the 31st of December 2019 stood at €45.8 million. While this has declined a massive €189.5 million since June 2016, mainly due to the sale of João Felix, it does put a certain amount of pressure on their academy. With their limited domestic earning potential and comparatively small revenue, Benfica have to be incredibly carefully managed. 7. Panathinaikos. When you think about Greece, financial responsibility isn't probably the first thing that springs to mind. 20-time Greek champions Panathinaikos, who made the Champions League semi-finals as recently as 1996, have been one of a number of clubs in the country to experience financial difficulties over the last decade. Since becoming majority owned by Giannis Alafouzos in 2012, the Greens have been a bit of a mess. Their debt spiralled out of control in 2018, and they struggled to obtain a license to remain in the top flight. That led to the Greek Super League readjusting the rules so the club could stay up and instead start with -6 points. In April 2018, UEFA decided to exclude them from competing in the next European tournament they qualified for until 2021. Having finished 11th in 17-18, 5 places lower than at any time this century, and 8th in 18-19, it hasn't been an issue as of yet. Having sold the majority of their star players and replaced them with academy graduates, payments to staff and players are now now being regularly paid. So whilst it'll probably be a long time before they return to the top of Greek football, at least Alafouzos has saved them from near certain ruin. 6. Dynamo Moscow. Prior to the 15-16 season, the Dynamo Moscow faithful had one thing to cling on to. Their rivals might ridicule them over their lack of a Premier League title and solitary trophy, but the club of Lev Yashin could always point to one thing: that they have never been relegated. But things have been bubbling away behind the scenes for years. In 2013, the club was sold to a known associate of Vladimir Putin, Arkady Rotenberg, and the mismanagement of the club began. The football and hockey clubs were merged. Players such as Smolov, Voronin and Karanyi were sold without any compensation whatsoever, and after the collapse of Anzi in 2013, Dynamo signed 6 Anzi players, including Chris Samba, for €67 million, when they were available to pick them up on a free. There were some dodgy background deals, with the Russian paper Vodomesti claiming they received a €75 million loan from a Cyprus shell company associated with Rotenberg, whilst UEFA claimed their sponsorship deal with VTB, in a similar vein to Man City, was inflated by 9 times. Their club was relegated, and the club's infrastructure and academy were now under the control of their previous owners. A horrible tale of financial woe. Dynamo are trying to rebuild their club after the Rotenberg era. 5. Botafogo. Unlike their European counterparts, clubs in Brazil are not run as limited companies. They often comprise of multiple sports teams and have paying members. Rather than having shareholders to respond to and reward, they're instead owned and run by pedestrians. A structure that often leads to amateurish decision making and financial mismanagement. And what's worse, presidents serve terms of 2 years and often feel free to run up debts to secure re-election. When they leave the club, they have no personal liability. A change could be coming though. In September 2019, representatives of 14 Brazilian clubs met with the House Speaker, Rodrigo Maia, to discuss creating a bill that would turn football clubs into corporations. The most ardent supporter of this move amongst the clubs is the 2-time Brazilian champions, Botafogo, who are the undisputed Brazilian champions of debt. They are estimated to be in about 750 million Brazilian reals in debt, which equates to £124 million in the black. Their saving grace, Rodrigo Maia, is a die-hard Botafogo fan, giving him extra motivation to get this bill through and potentially save the long-term future of Brazilian football. 4. Chelsea. We get what you're thinking. How can Chelsea, owned by Roman Abramovich, with a net worth of €12.1 billion, possibly be secretly poor? Well, they aren't, at least not in the traditional sense of the word. But make no mistake about it, the club are not sustainable without the benefits of regular Champions League participation. According to an excellent Athletic article released in January 2020, Chelsea's overall broadcast revenue fell £4 million between 2018 and 2019, and their matchday income dropped £6 million in the same period, despite hosting 2 more games in all competitions. In financial terms, winning the Europa League under Sarri was far less meaningful for the Blues' bottom line than a last 16 exit under Conte the previous campaign. Now Chelsea's pre-tax profits of £16 million in 2017 and a club record £67 million in 2018 suggest there's no immediate danger, but it's complicated if 2020 leads to a significant loss. With the 4th highest wage bill in the division, a huge turnover of players expected this summer, and Abramovich's interest rumoured to be fading, Chelsea quite simply have to qualify for the Champions League. 3. Barcelona. Is it any surprise that Barcelona, who have spent a net £226 million since the start of 17-18, including over £100 million on 3 players, Coutinho, Dembele and Griezmann, none of which could be argued to be a success, are in some financial difficulty? One of the main issues is the remodelling of the Camp Nou and the surrounding areas, which is now expected to be completed in 2023 and cost €600 million. This is a massive problem when, according to figures released in June 2019, Barcelona had a gross debt of €888 million, which, when their various assets and revenue streams are subtracted from, leaves their total debt at €504 million. The Blaugrana had planned to reduce that debt to €200 million, but their failed move for their forwards in recent years have created more issues than they've solved. And with Messi, Suarez, Piqué, Busquets, Rakitic and Alba all in their 30s and transfer fees continuing to be inflated, Barcelona's financial situation might get worse before it gets better. 2. Arsenal. Thanks to @SwissRamble on Twitter for the information on this section. He wrote up a review of Arsenal's financial results of the year 18-19, their first in the post-Wenger era, in which they finished 5th, confirming their 3rd consecutive year outside the Champions League. They showed that the Gooners swung from a £70 million profit before tax to a £32 million loss, figure only topped by 3 sides in the division: Crystal Palace, Chelsea and Everton. It was worryingly the first time Arsenal had posted a loss since 2002, which was particularly concerning considering the Gooners have posted 5 of the 20 highest ever Premier League profits. The main reason behind these losses was they only made £12 million on player sales in 2019, down from $120 million the year before, mainly due to the fact that Ramsey and Welbeck both left on frees. The figures for this year will be better, with Iwobi, Koscielny and Bielik having left for fees and Aubameyang set to leave this summer. It does continue a general trend though, with Arsenal making just £170 million on player sales over the last 5 seasons, £162 million less than Chelsea have in the last 4 campaigns. Still 5 points off 5th at the time of writing, Arsenal will have to improve their squad management decisions this summer if they want to get back into the Champions League anytime soon. 1. Atlético Madrid. Back in December 2011, when Simeone was appointed, Los Rojiblancos were languishing just 4 points above the drop zone and hadn't won a derby since 1999. Off the pitch, the situation was even worse. That summer, they were forced into selling Aguero and De Gea after losing their regular shirt sponsor Kia. According to SwissRamble, come the end of the season, they posted cumulative losses of €229 million over the previous 6 seasons. In January 2012, the Spanish Sports Council revealed that the Spanish clubs had a collective tax debt to the government of over €673 million, which Atleti were the biggest offenders on 120. Fast forward to 18-19, and Atleti announced their revenue had increased 22% to €367 million. How was this achieved? Obviously, competing at the top of Spanish and European football for the last 7 years has had an impact, but it's mainly down to the expanding Atleti's borrowing capacity. They did so in order to build the Wanda Metropolitano, but their net debt still stands at €506 million. That's despite successfully liquidating $202 million worth of debt to the Spanish government recently. Although most clubs can survive with a large amount of debt to their name, it can lead to potential administration and penalties should board members fail to manage it successfully. It was only 5 years ago that Parma were relegated into Serie D after declaring bankruptcy. Atleti's financial plans look to be working for now and their progress should be applauded, but it's not exactly a stable long-term solution. So that was 10 clubs that are secretly poor. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.